Once the elevator door closes, it feels just as if you have shut the whole world out, and in case you don't know, sometimes what goes on in there is more than just waiting for the elevator to stop. You must have heard some or experienced some yourself, but I would bet that these are the 16 most bizarre things captured in the elevator. Number 16. Stuck in the elevator. If you have never been stuck in any confined space, you probably won't be able to understand how these three men felt during this time. The three men got into the elevator when it was working just fine, only for it to stop working suddenly. They hit the walls of the elevator and the door to try and get out, but the elevator wouldn't work or open up. They were stuck right there for a long time, trying everything they could do just to get out, but all of their efforts proved futile. They were confused and helpless while they hoped that someone out there would get them out of it, but fortunately, the rescue team got there and tried to open the elevator from the outside. The entire time that they spent in there panicking would be recorded by the camera. Number 15. The elevator fight. In this elevator, a woman is waiting alone to get to her floor, but just before then, it then stops on a floor to allow other people in. It turns out for some reason, these people can never share a space, not even for the few moments that the elevator requires. The new passengers are three other women that appear to know one another, and although the video clip has no sound, you can see that one of the women is having a not-so-friendly conversation with the original woman on the elevator. It's not clear who began the conversation, but it soon looks heated and stops being a regular conversation and then turns to more of an argument. The next thing you see is the woman stop exchanging words and start to exchange fists, but since it's 3 against 1, the group soon overpowers the woman. It remains unclear what caused the fight, but we wouldn't have known about the fight either if it was not captured by the security camera in the elevator. Number 14. The pee that could not wait. Here's a quick question. How long should it take a good functioning elevator to move about 60 floors at full speed? I'll help you out with that one. At full speed, it shouldn't take more than 45 seconds at most, which means that if you're not going that far, even at a lesser speed, you should be out in less than 1 minute. In this elevator, it seems the only passenger cannot wait for even a moment to ease herself. She's been in there all by herself and was waiting patiently, but the moment the elevator stopped to allow the next passenger in, she did something really strange. She pulled down her trousers, and as she was doing that, the new passenger stood away and would have wished that he'd never gotten into that elevator at the first place. The man was shocked as the woman squatted to let out a flood of urine, and the craziest part of the story is that just as this woman had stopped urinating, the elevator stopped at her destination just in time, and she walked right out of it. The man just couldn't continue his journey, and he had to exit the elevator with the woman, and I also wouldn't want to be locked in an elevator with another person's urine either. Number 13. The vanishing paper. Sometimes some things happen and you just can't explain them. This man is going in and out of the elevator and not doing that because he doesn't know where to go, but because he's rigorously searching for his lost paper. You probably have a lot of questions right now, and that makes 2 of us because even after watching this clip, the questions still remain. Now let's rewind it to see how it all began. The elevator opens to receive 4 passengers, but just before it closes, 3 more passengers come in, and then the elevator closes and begins moving. It seems that the 7 passengers are headed to the same floor because as soon as the elevator stops, they all exit the elevator except for this man who is seen getting in and out. You probably missed the most important part, so we'll go back and zoom in for you to see. At this point, the man was holding a paper that suddenly vanished as an unseen force snatched it away from him. As soon as the elevator stopped, he looked around to see if the paper was anywhere on the floor as other passengers got out, but there was no trace of it. He went out to see if the paper was anywhere outside of the elevator door, but still there was nothing. And it's really confusing that the man has to go in and out of the elevator twice to check. Number 12. Behind the closed doors. Once the elevator door closes, to some people they just stand still waiting for the door to open again at their destination, and some use the mirror and admire themselves until the elevator stops while they do some weird stuff. As for this woman, she kind of falls into the 3 categories. She got into the elevator and used the mirror for a while, and then did what you wouldn't believe. She put her hands under her dress, removed her underwear, and dropped it in her bag. After that, she then redressed herself and admired herself some more. No one really knows why she did that, but I bet she didn't know that the camera was watching the whole time. Number 10. An unseen force. Sometimes being alone on the elevator gives a good feeling, and sometimes it can be scary when you think you're alone, but there are actually people that you can't see. On this elevator, the woman got in alone and met no other person. She had the lift all to herself for the few moments that she would be waiting, and then turned to the mirror to admire herself, and right there she redressed her hair and dress. She returned to her waiting position, and then something really strange occurs. Suddenly, she felt a force pushing her to the wall, more like a very strong man was determined to choke her to death. She struggled to free herself from this unseen force's grip, but that only resulted in more problems. The force would later release her from that wall and throw her at the opposite wall, and her feet were no longer touching the ground. It looks as if she was controlled by a whirlwind, and it went on, leaving the woman petrified. Number 9. The creepy man. It's not really clear if this man and woman began their journey on the elevator at the same time, but according to the clip, the two of them were alone that day. And since they didn't know each other from Adam, they stood apart waiting for their time to exit the elevator. The woman needed something to while away the moment, and so she turned to her mobile phone. It's not exactly clear what she was doing on the phone, but it was definitely nobody's business except for the man that was with her at the time. What was going on in the man's mind is unclear, but it seems that he thought he should pry into the woman's privacy. He moved closer to the woman and stretched his neck to see what she was doing. As soon as the woman felt that he was behind her, she turned and gave him a stern look that made him move away. She thought that she had communicated very well, but unknown to her, there was just the tip of the iceberg. She resumed what she was doing on her phone, and the next thing that she saw was the man moving closer to her and reaching for her shoulder. At that point, the woman became really angry. She hit his hand hard and continued to hit him until the elevator stopped. She then exited the lift and went on her way. Who knows what would have happened if the woman didn't defend herself. Number 8. Narrow escape. While some people get into the elevator alone, some come with company. This father and daughter were having a good time out as they entered the elevator together, and no one was in it. The two looked very happy, having a father-daughter conversation. The two of them admired each other in the mirror. They stared non-stop for about 30 seconds and might not have stopped staring if the elevator hadn't stopped at that time. They held hands and got out, fortunately at the perfect time, because immediately after they stepped out, the elevator began to malfunction. First, the door wouldn't close, and next, the whole entire elevator began to shake like there was an earthquake. It shook for a while and eventually crashed, leaving the mirror shattered. If the father and daughter were still standing in the elevator, it may have well injured them very badly. Number 7. The umbrella accident. As useful as the elevator might be, it can also be really dangerous. It doesn't matter who you are. When the elevator comes with its dangers, there's nothing much that you can do. It gets even more dangerous when a child gets on the elevator alone. One boy got onto the elevator and was waiting for his father, and since he had gotten in, the only way that he could stop the elevator from closing was to keep pushing the button to hold the door. He did that a few times and eventually got tired of using his hand. He thought of using something else to keep the door open, and the only thing that he was holding was his umbrella. The boy put the umbrella's handle right in the middle of the door, but instead of solving his problem, it only worsened his case. The elevator began to malfunction and moved at a very high speed and went straight from the 25th floor, and the boy could not get out of it. He began to panic, but fortunately the rescue team got to the floor and got him out. And looking at how young he was, the trauma might live with him for a very long time, and he may never be able to use the elevator for a long time again. Number 6. Unstoppable elevator. You might have seen an elevator that wouldn't move, but have you seen one that won't stop? A man got into the elevator and pressed the button that commands it to go up, but instead it did something else. It actually opened the door. If the man knew what was about to happen is crazier than what he had witnessed, he probably would have tried to get out of the elevator the moment the door opened. The man remained in the elevator and decided to try his luck with the machine again, but this time the elevator began to move at a very high speed. At that moment, he realized that something was definitely wrong with the machine, and he tried to use the emergency stop button, but the machine wouldn't stop and got even faster. In less than 14 seconds, the elevator moved 31 floors. The man panicked and began pressing all the buttons, but the elevator refused to stop. The only thing that stopped the elevator was the roof. Thankfully, he was not injured when he got rescued from the elevator. Number 5. A ghost child in an elevator. Even when it seems that you're alone in a place, you shouldn't believe that you actually are. You must have heard stories about ghosts that keep you wondering if ghosts really exist in the land of the living, and this story might just give you the answer that you desire. When a woman got into the elevator by herself, thinking that she was all alone, the camera captured what no one could see with their physical eyes. Right where the woman was standing, a ghost child was there with her all along and only surfaced when the woman was about to exit the elevator. The ghost didn't intend to harm or scare the woman, it was just standing there, but if the woman knew what was on that elevator with her, she might just pass out and never use that elevator again. Number 4. Haunted elevator. The main reason why an elevator is invented was to save time and reduce the stress of going up and down the stairs. But what happens when an elevator is useless? This man's elevator is useless not because it's broken or malfunctioning, but because the man feels his elevator is haunted. When he was asked why he stopped using the elevator, he said that he believed that it was haunted and that he also sees the creature that disturbs the elevator. This man believes that his elevator is not haunted by a ghost or a spirit, but rather by a humanoid. He claims that he saw it with his physical eyes and even made videos and took pictures of it, and since the first time that he saw the humanoid, he said that he was too scared to go near that elevator. From the video clip he shared, whenever he moved closer to the elevator, the creature glared at him and hid right before the elevator. It looks like a human with its structure and the way that it stands, but the totality of it is nothing like a human itself. The man was in a difficult situation. He couldn't even get closer to the humanoid, so there was no way to chase it out, and because of that, he could never use the elevator. It's not clear how far his floor is from the first floor, but he had no choice but to use the stairs anyways. Except someone was playing pranks on the man, and he definitely has something scary in that house, specifically in his elevator. We can only hope that he got out of that crazy situation somehow. Number 3. A demon controls the elevator. Some people are scared of the elevator, so they use the stairs instead, no matter how far they have to go. But hey, the stairs are not always safe either. While a woman was on the elevator, both the woman and the camera would catch something unusual. It was a shadow figure that had moved past the elevator very quickly. The woman thought about how impossible it is for a human to be that swift, and even the appearance didn't look much like a human, but more like a human shadow. Out of curiosity, the woman exited the elevator, took out her phone, and turned the camera on. She traced the shadow down the stairs to see what it was, and eventually she saw what she was looking for. At first, there was nothing as she took the stairs to the floor that she suspected the creature would be, until she heard a sound like a hiss right above her, and when she looked, she saw an extremely terrifying sight that is difficult to describe. The creature looks like a very thick shadow of a human, but it didn't move like one. It moved like the wind down the stairs, and everywhere the woman turned, she was ambushed by the creature itself. The woman thought the only safe place for her to be was in the elevator, and she ran back to it while she left the creature on the stairs, but even the elevator failed to obey her commands. That same elevator that she had operated successfully had stopped working, and the door wouldn't even close, so the elevator wouldn't move. It was more like the shadow demon was controlling the elevator from where it was. She ran out of it to use the stairs again, but came face to face with the scary creature. How is it even possible? Well, some things are well beyond the natural, but if the woman didn't make a video of the incident, no one would have been able to believe or comprehend her story. I just wonder how the woman escaped from this terrifying creature in the end. Number 2. A strange creature in the elevator. The next story is going to have you thinking whether or not the elevator harbors ghosts and other non-human creatures, or maybe the cameras are special enough to reveal them. I say this because in 2008, somewhere in Singapore, 2 office workers entered their building while they were having a chat. The The two men came to the office late at night to work on their night shifts, and once they got into the building, they checked in for the evening. They were seen entering the elevator while they were having a conversation, and at the time, everything was okay, and in fact, all was okay until they got out of the elevator. They would have finished their night shift before they found out it was not just the two of them that took the elevator that previous night. The camera showed something quite different from what the men had seen. Although there was a slight malfunction for a while, the camera showed that as the men arrived on their floor, they stepped off the elevator and revealed something terrifying behind one of them. It looks as though a ghost or a demonic creature was there, and it's not clear what the creature is, what it was doing behind the men, or if it had been there before they even got in. But according to the clip, it seems the creature came out of nowhere. After the men watched the clip, they were terrified to learn that they had been on the elevator with such a horrifying creature while they were laughing and at peace. But as they say, ignorance is bliss. Number 1. Possessed elevator. This one is arguably the scariest of all. This elevator is said to be possessed by an unknown spirit for what has happened to the passengers on it. It's not quite clear how many passengers have been a victim of this elevator, but there's a particular clip that shows the experience of one passenger. A woman got onto the elevator feeling very normal until suddenly she began feeling disoriented and stressed. It was more like this woman's body system had just gotten hijacked by an unknown force. She began acting as though she was no longer in control of herself, and it was so bad that she actually dropped her purse when she exited the elevator into the lobby. And as she gets into the lobby, she falls straight on her face and blocks her eyes. It looked like she was seeing something terrifying and hearing strange voices that she wanted to stop hearing. The video has no sound, but the image is very clear. The scary part is that the elevator door was still open, even while the woman was lying in the lobby, and to worsen the case, the woman was seen dragged back into the elevator by an invisible force. What happened to that woman in a way is unexplainable. Some people believe that she had an episode of psychosis. If psychosis explained what she had supposedly seen or heard, it definitely doesn't explain how she was dragged back into the elevator. Number 11. The Battle Angel. This next clip is more like an action movie with little suspense. You won't see it coming. On this elevator is a young woman who's all covered up in her smart outfit. She wears a scarf around her head covering up a big part of her face, and she was all alone in the elevator before she got company. Two men got into the elevator with her, and that's when things got really crazy. Suddenly, one of the men turned to snatch the woman's bag and was prepared to assault her if she resisted. The other man also joined in to accomplish their mission. She must look vulnerable to the men because of her gender or her small body, considering how they moved, but surprisingly, the perpetrators later turned into the victims. The woman single-handedly dealt with the men just like you would be watching Alita the Battle Angel. She knocked them down swiftly within the seconds that she had to wait for the elevator to stop. She grabbed her bag and walked out like nothing had happened, and it seems that she had no reason to report it. She just left the camera to tell the tale.